We're going to go over our next site now, which is going to be this agency website. So I'm going to kind of explain what we're going to be doing as far as Bootstrap 4 and some of the particular areas that we haven't really got into yet. So at the top, there is going to be this particular kind of navigation that we see here. It seems to blend in with the page, but when I scroll, you can see we get a dark color. It's more prevalent. We can see what's going on with the navigation a little bit better. And scroll out or back up, and it kind of fades back into the page. So there's that. There's basically this Jumbotron intro area that we're going to create. And we have this section here with these larger icons. So this is a row. Then we come down here, large background image on this row. We've got a button, several different images here. We've got another row with several buttons, and then our footer. So not a complex site, but we get to do a few different things we haven't done before. So let's go ahead and get into Visual Studio Code. Okay, so this is our main site. This is actually the template number 2, and there's nothing in here that's related to the agency site yet. So this is just kind of our jumping off point. And one thing I do have are the images. So we can see these are the ones that we're going to be using. So these are included in this project. And of course we have our CSS here. This is just from the template, so that'll get changed out. And going back over here to this index. So as I'm going through this course, one thing, kind of a side note, is that Visual Studio Code will come out with different versions depending on how long it takes me to create the actual course. And this is an updated version. And notice here at the top, the file name is italicized. And I'm only able to open one at a time. So I can change that. I'm going to go into the preferences. I'm going to click over here to workspace settings. And then I'm going to scroll down. There's a setting here with the editor. It's actually the workbench that I want to change. It's going to get me out of that so I can open multiple files. And it's this preview. So I'm going to click actually this pencil and do a false on that and save. And now I'll close this. You can see here it's no longer italics in the file name and the tab. So I can click and I can open more files than just the one. Okay, so that is a side note on how to do that in case you run into it at some point with Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to remove the hello world, and there's some styling we're going to add into the body tag. So there's some things we're going to be creating, of course, inside of our SaaS file that's going to relate to these here. So this data spy is actually part of the scrolling that we saw earlier, and we're going to have a data target as well. And that's going to be Navbar custom. So these data dash, remember, are mainly related to accessibility. Okay, so now we start creating this Navbar, and we're going to start with our root, which is Navbar, and then it's going to be of type expand. And we're targeting the medium, which is a fairly safe one to target. And then we're going to go with custom here. And this custom is going to be one of our own, so that's going to get created a little later. And then here's where the color is coming in for the dark that we saw. That eventually transitions into the dark. And we're making the navbar stick to the top. So now we are going to create a container. And for it, we're going to have our page scroll inside of there. So container, and then the next one, we're going to have a class, which is going to be page scroll. All working with that scrolling effect that we saw. And we're going to have our button, which is going to be navbar toggle. So this is going to be the hamburger menu. And we're going to do toggler. Type is button, of course. And then we're going to have data toggle. It's going to equal collapse. And data target. We're going to have a particular name here. So we're just going to say navbar, or we can do navbars, example 09. It doesn't really matter. We're going to have this set a little later. So the ID that we're going to provide is going to be a little bit further down. All right, so area controls is going to be the same as well. I'm making this work with accessibility. Okay, so we have our area expanded, which is going to be false. We want an area label, and that is going to be toggle navigation. So now that we know what all the accessibilities are, I'm going to, going forward, paste those in so we don't have to go through every one of these, because we've done pretty much all of these already several times. All right, so we are creating our icon now. So the visible part of that hamburger menu, which is going to be navbar, we want toggler icon, and close that off. So that goes in the button, and then below the button we're going to have another class which is going to link, or it's going to be a link for the digital agency, basically the logo that you saw in the top left. So we are putting that as the branding, so it sits inside of the navbar, and we're going to do an href to index.html, and we can do digital agency. All right, so going down a little bit further below this div, still inside of the main navbar section. So let's see, this is closing here. We're going to roll this up, and now we're going to handle the part of this that actually appears when everything collapses. So we're going to have a collapse to start everything off. We're going to have our navbar collapse and justify it on content. And so basically what it means, whenever we're shrinking the browser, then we get the hamburger menu, you click it, and then these are the items that you're going to see. And this is where our ID from above is coming in, this one right here. That will go there. Then we create an unordered list for these various items. It does need a class, so we're still working within navbar. This is going to be navbar, and we're going to have nav. And so the first item here, li class, we're going to do hidden, and that is going to be an href. So they're going to follow a similar pattern, and I'm just going to do a page top here. Class is going to be a nav link, so for obvious reasons, and we're not going to put anything there. Because the rest of these are going to be links with a different class, I'm going to paste them, and so that different class is going to work with the page scroll. And I am going to do y, just because those are the page names that are actually in the menu. This is going to be who, we're going to have clients, and we need one more, which is going to be contact. Okay, so on these links, the class is going to be the same, but we want to put our text in here because these are visible. And this one for Y. Okay, so just make sure this is closing off. I'm going to collapse this UL. That looks good. And we should have an ending nav. Just wondering, where did that go? So that will go here. All right. So that should complete the navigation. We are going to go ahead and take a look. So going out to Safari, we can take a look at our site. So we can see here, this is looking good. Can't scroll right now, obviously. There's not enough page to do that. One thing we can do is just remove this. We're not going to need that for that blue background. Now that we have the navigation, in this lesson, we're not going to have enough time to really get into anything with the main body of the page. We are going to work on our footer though, which is easy enough, and we'll have minor styling. So we're just going to do digital agency, do the copyright, and 2017, all rights reserved. And save that and just take a look. So we definitely need some styling for it. You can see what's happening there with even our menu bars. So once the styling comes in, that will get fixed. And actually, if we go back out and right click and inspect, our menu is still there, but we're white on white at this point. So that's why we're not really seeing any text, but you can see the elements are definitely there. So some of the page coloring and the images will come in, and that will be visible again. In our next lesson, we're going to start adding some of the SaaS styling that we provided in here, and also targeting that footer. We're going to now start working on our intro section and add in a little bit of the styling that goes along with what we did in the navigation, the intro, and also for our footer. So to start this off, we're going to have a section tag, and that's going to equal a class intro, which we're going to have to create the styling for, as well as a lot of what we're going to see coming up in this part here. So like intro body, and we're going to now create a container because we're bringing in a row. So it's going to be class container, and we will start with the row here. So this is that big area, that big, basically like a Jumbotron area that we saw on the target site. And we will take a look once we get some of our styling in and get the background going. So we're going to use a little bit of offset while we're creating this. So this is going to be a div class, and we're going to have column, going to work with a large 10. And then we're going to offset it with the large 1. So remember, the 1 is whatever the offset is times 2. So this is 12 for us. We're going to do 12 again on extra large. We're going to go with an 8 and offset it with a 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. And keep in mind for the breakpoints, it goes by the size you're targeting. So this is XL. So we have 4 and 8, that's 12. This one right here is a large. So we have 10 and 2, which is going to be our 12. All right, so now we're going to start working on the welcome part of this, which is going to be an H1. We're going to have a class that we're going to create called brand heading to handle some of the styling for this class. This is going to be closing my H1. Let's see, because I didn't close it here. I was wondering why that didn't bring in the closing tag. And now I have too many. Okay, so the next part of this, we're going to do a paragraph tag with our intro text. So there's a little bit of sentence here, and inside of it we had digital agency. So let's just take a look at our target over here, scrolling back up. Okay, so this is where we are. Now we are here, and you can see that's why this is going into a strong. All right, so outside of that, we have is here for all of your technology, advertising, SEO, and marketing needs. Okay, so that should complete that part. And if we take a look at our site, it's going to, of course, need some styling. You can see we're running up here into our nav brand section. So going into the SaaS, we're going to bring in a few variables. So we're going to have our color for primary, and that is going to be a 26A5D3. We're going to have our dark, that's going to be 333, and we are going to have our light, which we can also, and that is going to be an F4, F4, F4. Okay, and I'm going to put in our code for the HTML, the body. Some of it's lengthy, so I don't want to go through and just you watching me type everything, but I am going to explain some of what's going on here, some of the more involved ones. So let's see, if we go down here, we can see our variables are getting used right there. So they can be used anywhere inside of here. We're keeping our heading tags all the same in regards to the fonts, especially for the fonts, and then there's a little bit of margin work that's going on for them as well. And then for our anchor tags, you'll notice on the primary site, we had a few different things going on as we hover over links. So like this, when it's visible, then we get our black, basically the same there. And that's really the main place that we're going to be using links. And if I hover over this, let's see right here, we can kind of see what this is doing. So you can see now how this is getting engaged with the ampersand hover. And down here, we're still inside of that link, that anchor tag for this focus. So to understand the syntax that we're using here, focus is targeting this text here. So that's why you have this particular kind of syntax. You can see there's nothing on hover. So probably it could be removed, but this kind of gives you an idea of what to do if you want to start chaining these and particularly target something for hover. So in that case, you would just put it inside of your braces and start filling it in the same way that we filled it in here. So it's just going to do some targeting is what it means. Then of course we're setting are darkened based on a percentage. So we're using our variable for darken, and we're not going all the way. So we're just using the 20% there for that. And if we go and take a look at what we have on our site now, we should start seeing some differences, and we do. So a lot of that's coming in. We can go ahead and take care of the remaining CSS that we have for our main area and the footer. And let's look at this right here. This is a little bit more involved, so I'll go over this one. But again, in Visual Studio Code, if you hover over these, you can see how these elements are really getting chained and what they're going to output inside of the browser. So this right here, this chain is based on the hierarchy of nav link. And if we go and look at nav link, that's why they're nested the way they are. So if I just put this in here, and you can see here, so we're inside of here, then we're inside of here. This right here is inside of here. So it's just walking down that hierarchy is basically how we're ending up with this kind of syntax. Okay, so I'm going to bring in some more CSS. This is not our footer yet, but we will get it. Again, this is just very verbose, not complex type of CSS. This is where our image is coming in. And a little bit more work on our Navbar as well, as far as getting the colors right. We have a border that we're adding. Okay, so this right here, landing page, is actually that main area. So scrolling down, we have a little bit of work that's being done on the breakpoints, just to ensure we're getting the right kind of look at the breakpoint and not using the particular default. So why would you want to do that? We've seen it in some of our other projects. Mainly it's around what is happening at the breakpoint. Is it giving you the look you want? So if not, then you would come in here, hit a particular media query and set your breakpoint, and then start doing a little bit of that visual work. That's what this right here is basically accomplishing. So one thing I am going to do is put our footer down here. Again, not a lot going on with it, and save that. So we're just ensuring some good spacing on our footer, setting the height of it, so restricting it, making sure that height is always there, and then centering the text inside of that footer. So while we are here, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the remaining content, and the footer's in it, so I'm just going to remove that one. And you can see our page scroll work here is targeting particular browser properties to make sure the scrolling is working. We have our banner, social button icons, which we haven't gotten to yet. So we can come back and forth to look at the CSS to see any effects it's having. So this is the client section. We've not gotten to it yet. The who section. So this is going to be all of our CSS going forward. I'm not typing all this out because it just takes quite a while to go through and type out the CSS. So it's going to be a little bit more efficient if we just build the layout part of it here in the index page and then go back and reflect and see how the CSS is affecting it. And I am going to save this, and let's take a look now at our site. So looking compared to this site here, we have a little bit of differences going on with the font, and this right here, of course, needs to be aligned. The image itself, a little bit of work that's going to be done there. We're going to now start getting into some of these bottom areas here. As we work through it, we're going to see the site start tightening up as well. So that's coming up in our next lesson. We're moving into the why section. What I mean by that is the why us. So the text up here in this navigation, we actually will need to do a little bit of changing. You can see ours is a little bit different there. But if I click, that's where our scrolling kicks in. So I move down here to the why us section. This is the area we're going to be building out now. So going back into Visual Studio Code, we're going to scroll down below our intro, and I'm going to roll that up actually. And we're going to start here. So this starts off with another section. We're going to have an ID of Y, and we're going to have a class of container, and also content section. And that is one of ours. Content section is one of the classes that is in our SaaS. So if we go back here, this is content section here. So providing us with a little bit of padding, basically. So top, right, and bottom. Okay, so in here, and I'm going to move this over to keep things aligned. We're going to have our heading, which is going to be why choose us. So class is going to be text center. Why choose us. And then up here, we want to actually change this. So why choose us, who we are. I think that is the target menu item. So why us, not why choose us, just why us. Okay, so then we have a little bit of text below this. That's going to be another class is going to equal text center. I am going to just paste that text in there. So this right here is going to be strong and kind of a repeat of some of the stuff we saw earlier as far as the text goes. We're going to have just do a break here and start a row. So these are going to be 3 columns. Go look at our site. They're going to be 4, 4, and the last one 4. So inside of here is where we set our columns. So class is going to be, we're targeting large again. So large 4. And div class is going to be, it's going to be for fun, awesome, to create those icons. It's going to have a briefcase and FA 5X. And let's see here. So I missed something on this. We actually have a class here that's going to be our block and block icon left. And then div class equals icon. And we're going to take a look shortly to see what those are. So just moving this out and there, clean that up. So this right here actually becomes an italics tag. Then we have a div that we close right there for that icon. And what we need is icon content. So again, we're going to shortly take a look at this and see how these classes are affecting it. It will give us a better perspective of what's actually happening. We have an H3 here. This is just going to be called professional. And then we're going to do lorem ipsum. Okay, so the remaining of these actually follow the same pattern, which means we can do copy and pasting as we go through them and just change out the icons. So we have 2, 3. That completes our columns. And then we just need to do a little bit of changing. So we're going to have, let's see here, for the second one, instead of professionalism, this is going to be low cost. And we want to do a different icon. It's going to be money. Save that. And then this one down here, let's see. Okay, so I had one collapsed, and we're going to go ahead and leave that. Actually, we should just probably move this up right here. And this one's going to be money. And then the other one's going to be just called fast. And it's going to have a briefcase. Or, sorry, a dashboard. Save that. And then we'll go take a look. So you can see here what we're plugging in. And then we're going to copy those 3 we just created to create the ones down there. So those are coming through now. And to create the others, we're going to collapse it so it makes it easy to follow along where everything is. And what I'm going to do here is add a comment so we can tell where we are. And I'll call this one bottom 3 icons. And we'll grab this. Actually, what we want is to go ahead and collapse this row. So here's where we want that. We'll grab this, paste it, and that looks okay. So now we just have some icons and some text to change. So this is going to be large community, and we're going to change this one out for a gear. And let's see, this right here is going to be resources and tools. This is going to be large community. And the last one is going to be online courses. So this is going to be users instead of money. And then down here, we're going to have online courses with a book. So there's quite a few of these things. And you can see which ones are available at the Font Awesome website. So there we are. And looking over here, you can see we're getting the same kind of sites. Look at our image. So the image is good. this area up in here needs a little bit of work, but this right here is now finished. So what that leaves on the site is the who section, our, and then down here, the clients, or actually the contact section. Looking at our site, you can see we're kind of jumping over, and we're going to make a few modifications inside of the code base. And one of them is going to address the issue with why we're not aligned. But right here, this is actually, these are supposed to be page scrolls and not hiddens on those. And I also need to make sure these right here are getting targeted, because when you click a menu item, it scrolls you down to that section. So we may have to go back over these. And I also want to make sure this text in the menu is correct. And then we're going to fix this other issue we're seeing. So we have a why us, who are we, those look good. And you'll notice the fonts are a little bit different. And the reason for that is because the target site is actually using some of the Google API fonts, which is not that big of a deal. We're going to stick with Font Awesome. And this right here, so let's go ahead and address what's happening with this. If I inspect it, we can see that we are actually using what we should be using. There's one small typo right here with this XL. And if we go into the code base, we can fix that real quick. This is it here. Although we're not hitting the breakpoint, so it's not really having an effect. We're not seeing it visually right now. So looking at this div right here, this is where our row is. You can see our row stretches all the way across. That's good. If we go back over here and do an inspect, we'll look at this row as well. And let's see, I'm going to target this section here. This is that same row. It stretches across. Now, here we are on this column where we're defining these columns. You'll notice on the left, there's that big margin right there that we don't have. Let's go look at ours. So we don't have that. You can see there's no orange on the left over there. So the code is the same. It's not the code. We did that right. So what exactly is going on with that? I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code and just show this. Now, with a final release of Bootstrap, you're not likely to see this, but because I am progressing through this course and Bootstrap 4 is changing from betas, there is a difference, and I've got them over here. So we're using this one right now. If I look, you can see this is beta. This is like beta 1, and this is beta 2. This is actually what the target site is using, and it's making that difference in the alignment. So what I'm going to do is take this and rename it, and I am going to just do V, or just change it to V4. And this one here I'm going to change, so rename to just Bootstrap, because that is what we have referenced in our header. You can see here. And you would do that just by updating your Bootstrap and NPM, or you could just grab this off of the CDN. So I'm going to close that up. Let's go look at the site now. And this is our site. It is aligned. Now you can see that is over there. So that was definitely making some minor differences. The rest of this is coming from the fonts that we're using. So the fonts are making a little bit of difference there. So that handles that issue. And there's one more thing I want to go over, which was down here in these icons. So I'm going to bring back the inspector. Okay, so here we are. We had this block icon left. I mentioned I was going to go over it so we could kind of see the effects that it's having. So that's what we're going to do now. And over here, you can see the actual CSS that the block icon left is using. It's the overflow auto so that we don't get clipped. It handles clipping basically. And then you build in the kind of icon that you're using. So let's look at what it does for the icon. So icon left is still going on. This is icon, you can see here. It just sets particular kind of properties. So this is what happens with our float. So we can have our text align, of course the width, and then we have our margin. So that's all it's doing is these kind of particular things for the icon to help with the layout. And we have the icon content. So this is the actual text. So basically it sets up this whole layout. You start up here with this block left, which contains that whole section. You can see everything for the icon, the text and the associated icon are all inside of there. Then you build it out. Kind of like what we saw with the cards. You have the card title, you have the content, and it all gets wrapped up inside of a particular div related to it. This is a similar thing, but for icons. Then we have this icon content that is for the text, and it's got some alignments here, which you can see that's making everything work. And if I start removing them, you can see how things break. So again, just helping us out with the alignments of the icons to make sure everything is looking good. So I am going to remove this, and what we have left are the bottom sections here. So there's only 2 more rows to this site. We also have the scrolling we're going to add in. That's going to require some jQuery. So we'll see how that works. So we have this section in the client section, this contact digital agency. They're not much. Now we're moving into the bottom sections of our site. I'm going to collapse some of these we're not using so they're not going to confuse us. Okay, so right above our footer is where we start the next part of this, which is going to be for the clients section. And as we've been doing, we're starting these with sections. Just going to give this an ID. If anything, an ID, even if you're not using it, especially in this case, can demarcate sections of your site and just make it very easy to understand what's going on. So it kind of acts as a little bit of metadata. And we're going to do a content section. We're going to center this. And remember, content section is ours. That's in our SaaS file. Just to do a little bit of padding is basically all it does. We're going to have a container. There's not going to be any rows on this part here. These are all those different clients that we saw. They're just going to be in an unordered list. And we have a heading for our clients, then an unordered list. And we're using an inline on our class, so list inline. And list inline is one that we've added into our SaaS. So you can see here nested into the clients section, and we're actually targeting that ID there. Also, I noticed we don't have the who. I'm just going to add this, and we will come back, but I don't want to miss it. So there we go. We'll have to add in our code there. So for list items, we are going to set these up as classes, and they're going to have to follow the inline as an item. So list inline item, and going back over here, these are the LIs. So they get targeting there, and then we bring in a class for a little bit of additional styling. And the way they're going to work is we'll just do an image source, and we're going to do a lot of copy and pasting here and just change those out so they're unique images. PNG, our class is going to be our familiar image fluid. We can just do an alt of IMG description, so whatever you would want that to be, and close. Now I'm going to just make sure this is coming through okay before I start grabbing the others, and there it is. So that looks good. And let's go back over here. So we have a few of these. I think there's about 6 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll go all the way to number 6 on these here. And let's see here, 3, 4. Looks like I may have one extra. 6. Remove that. Save that, and let's go check. There they are. So that looks pretty good. And for the who section, we can go ahead with that. This is going to have a div with a class of who section. That, of course, is one of ours. We'll take a look at it here in a little bit. So who are we? And we are going to have a little bit of text. We're going to do a lead in here on this paragraph, lead class. Okay, so let's take a look now to see what's going on with this who section class. I'll just do a find on it, and here we can see our image, of course, is in the background like the intro was. We're setting our background color and some padding as well. We have a little bit of browser-specific properties that are getting set. And just close this out. Okay, so our text here, I am just going to paste that in along with our anchor tag down here for contact. So contact us will just scroll us on down to that section. And then, of course, we're doing this as a button. You saw the button that we had. It's a light color. If we go and look at what we have now, so here we are here. It looks like we need to fix the alignment on that. And that's our button right there. And just in regards to lead, we saw that class. And if we do an inspect, it just helps us with the way the text formatting is. So lead is like the journalistic word for lead. You can see the differences there. So just kind of the lead text for that section. Okay, now going back over here, what we are missing is some classes up here. So we have content section that we've been using. You can see it's getting used up here along with the text center class. Save that, and now check our site. That looks good. Here's our clients. So everything is falling into place, and then we have our contact. We're going to roll this up, get them out of the way, and start another section now for ID equals contact, and just move the footer down a little bit. So this is going to have a row, and then we're going to have our columns. So class is going to be row, and we start another div for our columns. I'm going to do a large 10, and we're also going to have an offset large 1, which gives us 12. And we're going to follow what we had before with our extra large and an offset 2. And that again gives us 12. So now we're going to do the title, which is Contact Digital Agency. And remember, we have formatting on these H2s, and if we go and look, I think that is up here at the top. Here we are. So that's our formatting for the different kind of headings that we have. This next part is text, so I'm just going to paste that in like that. Nothing special going on there. And then below our email, we're going to have an unordered list. This is where we're starting the different social media parts of this. Let's take a look at the target site so we can see down here. So these buttons right here. And what we're going to have is a pattern, so that means we can do copy and pasting for the last two. We create the first one, we'll copy and paste the last two. Okay, so we're going to do a list inline again, and banner social buttons class. And that is one of ours in the SaaS. So if we go and look, we can see we're doing a little bit of fixing on the letter spacing, tightening things up basically. We have padding, no margin, the alignment is there, letter spacing down here inside of the LI, that is getting a 0. And we're going to check to see the effects of that here shortly. So again, once we create one, we can then just copy and paste and follow, or just paste in the last two. So we're going to have a list item just like we did above. And in here, going to use an italics again to create the icon. So FA Twitter, again, font awesome here, and FAFW. Okay, so here we're going to add the text, and we don't have anything for a button. So you can see we're missing our button. What we're going to do for that is actually put this in an anchor tag. So we're going to have an href. We can just make this go off to Twitter. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm not even going to put the URLs in there because they can be whatever URL you want them to be. And we're going to do button, button light, and button large. And we want to be inside of our LI, of course. Just remove that so that we wrap this italics tag in it, and we can end there. Let's go take a look now. So there's our button, and we can take this now, this list item, and it will follow the same pattern for the others. So we need 2 of those. And now we're going to change to Facebook and Google+. So these right here are going to follow pretty simple text. And we'll just do something like this. And then, of course, we have this one down here for Google+, which is going to be Google+. And we can just change this to Google+. Save that, and let's go look. So there we are. And if we take a look, you can see now, and again, the fonts are just making that jump ever so slightly. And you'll notice we have our menu coming in. So where did that come from? Because it wasn't there before. Let's take a look at how that works. So scrolling down, we have this main.js. If I go and look in here, we have main.js. This right here is helping us with our scrolling. So I'm just going to go through kind of explain what this is, because you can get this code to make this work off of Stack Overflow, and I'll show you what I did. So searching for Bootstrap scrolling navbar issues, and if I scroll down, this is it here, Bootstrap scrolling navbar issues. And if you look at the code being used, it's very similar to what I have. So go back over here, and I'll explain how this works now. So this is, let's go look at our menu just to look at the functionality of how this actually works. So scrolling up here, this of course goes away. You get an animation, and it's using an easing in plugin for jQuery to make that happen. So if I click on one of these, we scroll. I click on this one, we scroll. That's what a lot of that JavaScript is making happen, along with this animation that we're seeing. And the easing in plugin, let's go look right here, jQuery easing .min.js, which if you do a search on that, you will find it as well. You can actually search for that script. So let's see, I'm just going to show you how to get this one file. Just put this in. There's a CDN, so this is the one right here. You can go there, and you'll see it in the CDNs. Just download it right there. Okay, so going into our JavaScript here, our jQuery here, and again, you need this file and just link it like I've linked it. All that is in the project when you download it. Okay, so what we're doing is kicking this off on a scroll. So we're looking, if we have Navbar, we're looking for this offset. So offset gets coordinates. Right here, we're getting the coordinate just for top. So that brings back just the coordinate, because usually with offset, you'll get, or you will get, top and left. So you get two of them. We're just getting one of them, and we're saying greater than 50. We're going to add in this class, and we're going to take a look, and we're actually going to see how it works. Otherwise, we're going to remove it. So that's helping with our appearance. So now here's where the animation is. What we're doing is looking for page scroll, the anchor tag, and we're going to put a click in there. And then we're going to stop the animation, make this scroll top, and you can see we're getting a coordinate just for top on the anchor tag. And we're going to do a 1.5 second animation called ease out. And then this right here, event prevent default. Because we're attaching to an anchor tag, we're basically removing the default behavior, which is to take you out to a website. So let's go and look now at our site. And if I scroll down, you can see the animation that we get right there. Now, this 1.5 seconds, so if I click, that's 1.5 seconds. If I were to change this to 3000, of course, that's going to be 3 seconds. It should be twice as long. So let's take a look, and actually need to refresh to make that kick in. All right, so scrolling back up here, if I click clients, notice it's a lot slower. So I actually slowed it down whenever I did that. So that is how all of this is working. Now let's look where this comes in, this adding and removing of the class. And that is going to be in our menu. So I'm just going to do an inspect so that we can see that on here. All right, and let's see, we are up here. So notice we have top nav collapse is there. Now watch this class, watch what happens when I scroll up. It's gone. So that is what that jQuery is doing. It's removing it and adding it. Now watch, it'll come back. There it is. Because I've hit that 50 that it's looking for, that 50 pixels offset from the top. So see, I'm scrolling down. Now I'm 50 from the top, and it's there. I move back up. Now it's not there. So that is how that works. And at this point, we have completed our agency website. So everything is in there that we were after. And we have the same kind of look, minus the little bit of difference with the fonts, because we're not using the Google API fonts. We're just making use of Font Awesome. So now you have a great looking layout for an agency site. This can be used for a lot of different sites. We've seen how to do this background. We've brought in as well this scrolling that we have up here. We've done a lot of work with Font Awesome icons, and again, the alignment that we get out of those. So a lot of great new learning that we've added here in regards to Bootstrap 4. I'd like to just summarize what we've learned in this agency project. So on this site, we created our navigation at the top. We have the branding section over here. We have the actual menu of items here. And of course, we can shrink this up and get a responsive behavior from it. So if I bring this over, we get our hamburger icon, we get the menu items there, and then the responsive site, everything starts snapping into place into a single column, which is exactly what we'd expect. We have as well, besides the animation we get when we scroll manually, we can click on an item. It's going to scroll for us down here. The menu, of course, is going to change. We get the animation that works us down into that area of the page that we're targeting. So if I want to go to the clients, then just a little bit of scrolling, and that's going to use an offset, and it's going to grab the top coordinate of the offset is how that's working, which we did see. And then down here, we saw how to create these buttons. We used an anchor, and then we brought in the Bootstrap button classes to do that. And right here, a lot of fun, awesome work. So we get to see really a lot of the power of fun, awesome. You don't have to run out and find icons for your site. You can just use fun, awesome. And a lot of the icons that they have available, you can just see at the Fun Awesome website how all the different ones that you can choose from. So that's just a quick summary of what we've covered inside of our agency website.